Hi, I'm Rob Van Leer. I build muskets as a hobby, and I build muskets of the American Revolution. This is a copy of the British Brown Bess. It's a 75 caliber smoothbore. It's a flintlock. This is the lock mechanism which holds the flint. Stock. This is the barrel. The expression lock, stock, and barrel came from this weapon. Now, when they used these weapons, they basically had to load this gun from a paper cartridge. The cartridge looks like a small cigar, rolled in paper with gunpowder and ball in the cartridge. They'd pull the cartridge out. They'd have to pull the cock mechanism to half cock. Half cock, I can tear open the cartridge, sprinkle a little bit of powder here in the pan, and close the frizzen. After that, I swing the gun around, pour the rest of the powder down, push the ball down, and ram that all tightly down at the seat. You turn the rammer, and I'm ready to shoot. Now this is in half-cock position. The trigger does not work in half-cock position. It's so I can work with this with powder without accidentally pulling the trigger and causing an accident. So the expression "don't go around half-cocked" comes from this lock mechanism. Now I can go to the full cock position. Now the trigger will work. When I pull the trigger here, this piece of flint is going to strike this frizzen. The frizzen is going to fly open, and sparks, hopefully, will come off from this frizzen face and land in that pan where that little bit of powder is. That's going to flame. That's going to shoot a flame into a small hole right down here at the bottom of the pan, into the barrel, ignite the powder, and hopefully send the ball down the field. So when I pull this trigger, and we probably won't see it because of the sunlight, this should send a shower of sparks, and there were a few sparks, and hopefully they land in there and cause this to go off. Well, black powder is an extremely dirty explosive. So after about 10 to 20 shots, this gets very full of carbon. And sometimes that little hole in there gets full of carbon. And when it does, this will go off, but it won't shoot the flame into the powder, and the gun won't shoot. And that's called the flash in the pan, because this right here is the pan of the lock where the priming powder went. And the expression "flash in a pan" came from this musket, as well as I said, don't go around half-cocked.
While it was wet or rainy, what happened?
Well, in the Revolution, it was not unusual for both sides to march off the field in a rainstorm, because these things just don't work very well in the rain. The percussion weapon that you might have seen earlier in some of these videos, that the Civil War guys were more effective in the rain, but when these guys are out trying to shoot in the rain, this was clearly not a fun gun to try to shoot in the rain. They just didn't go off that often. This is their powder horn. Some of the riflemen would carry their powder in a powder horn. The goal was to not let this powder get wet, because it will not work once it gets wet. When they made these guns, one of the questions I got was, how do you bore out the barrel on a gun like this? And they didn't. Number one, it's a very thin-walled barrel, and that's a lot of waste of iron if you're going to make a rod and then drill out the barrel. What they did was they would actually forge a flat piece of stock steel around the rod under hot conditions, red-hot conditions, and literally wrap that iron around that rod and hammer weld it, and then they'd rebore this thing to make it straight. And the reason was iron and steel were very hard to come by back then. You could not waste it. You could not drill out a hole and have a bunch of filings on the floor. That was a waste of iron. One of the examples on that is if you look at some of the trade knives that they used. Again, very, very thin. They did not use thick steel knives because steel was precious. And so this was a typical trade knife, and it's tempered. It's good carbon steel. It will cut for a long time. But again, the idea of using a lot of steel for one man was just a waste of metal, and metal was precious to them. Something else that I have here is a peace axe. This was a trade axe that, like the trade knives, they were traded by Europeans wanting furs from the natives, and so they would bring these trade knives in. Well, this actually is, or trade axes, this is a trade axe. You can put tobacco in here and you can actually smoke out of this end, and the natives really liked it. And one of the neat things that came out of this was the expression "bury the hatchet." If you think about burying the hatchet, which is where two people decide they're going to be friends again, it's not digging a hole and putting a hatchet in and filling it up with dirt. This is how you bury the hatchet. The only thing that's showing is the peace pipe. And the expression bury the hatchet came from this tomahawk.
Well, how can people get hold of you, Rob?
Well, I'm a full-time civil engineer, so I don't have a website. I might when I retire, but at this stage you could email me at rvanlier@seastone.net. That's rvanlier@seastone.net. I'll answer any questions you have. Thank you.